Okay, everybody, please join back. Ma'am, Dr. Venu Gupta.
Thank you, Dr. Pushpendra. It's my pleasure to welcome all in the Day 2, Session 3 of ATAL FDP Design Thinking in Kirori College. For this session, we have with us Mr. Dharmendra Rai, who will be enlightening us on the topic An Introduction to Mind Mapping. Mr. Dharmendra Rai is Mumbai's first mind mapping trainer and brain literacy pioneer. यूं तो मिस्टर धर्मेंद्र राय का परिचय एक माइंड मैप ट्रेनर के रूप में देना सूर्य को दीपक दिखाना होगा, पर फिर भी प्रयास करती हूँ. He has done seminars for executive of many Fortune 500 companies and other giant companies like Amazon, Google, LinkedIn, Cast 24, many Prudential, ICICI, Life Insurance, then Amazon, CNBC. Also for IIT, IIM, Harvard Business School, Wharton Business School, Johnson Hopkins, Oxford, London School of Economics, CFA Institute of Alumni, and organizations like YPO, Young India, CII, ISRO, World HRD Congress, SHRM, WEF, and WIT, conducting training and coachings for people of USA, Dubai, Singapore, Oman, and Indonesia. He has also appeared on prominent media like Google News, Forbes, Times of India, CNBC, Hindustan Times, BTVI, etc., many more in the queue. Mr. Rai just won the Kotler Award of 2020. Honorable PM Modi is the one of the earlier winner. Also, he received a UN award for mind mapping and brain literacy. And you will be happy to know that previously it includes our Honorable President APJ Abdul Kalam, who received this award. He was also the first person in the world to talk on TEDx on creative and mind mapping. Mr. Dharmendra Rai is an author of many books on mind mapping, creativity, and memory, and is an internationally best-selling author of two books. I would like to mention that the first book, The Thin Mind Map book, it has been invited to be an Amazon Prime reading. It gives rise to over 600 million search results in Google. Many considered it to be the best book on mind mapping in the world. His second book is The Invisible Selling Book, Behavioral Economics and More. It is among the top best-selling books, ebooks on personal improvement on Amazon. It gives rise to over 7 million search results on Google. Many consider this amongst the best book in the world and selling the best book in the world, Behavioral Economics. Mr. Dharmendra Rai was declared as genius by Tommy Buzan, mind map inventor, Nobel Prize nominee, and one of the Forbes top 5 speakers in the world. Welcome, Mr. Dharmendra Rai. It's our honor to have you here, sir.
Thank
Over
you.
to Mr. Dharmendra.
Yes, hi. So thank you everyone for putting this program together. I am particularly excited about design thinking and creativity because since childhood, I have been extremely dissatisfied, or maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand how people cope with so many things in their environment, which are so badly designed. It's absolutely a puzzle, even at this stage of having interacted with so many companies. I'm still not able to wrap my head around why more companies, more institutions do not give enough focus to creativity and to design thinking. I'm very happy the concept of design thinking has become popular to some extent, though the mental processes of design thinking are the same as creativity or lateral thinking or any scientific process that enhances your creative thinking can be linked to design thinking. But it's great to have design thinking as a discipline because design thinking is something that people can relate to. They are in a way training human brains to be creative by looking at physical objects or services that we can relate to. So there are so many things in this world that need to be made better with the help of design thinking. If I start talking about them, that itself could be something which will go on for several months. So let me just mention two things which completely puzzled me out. I'm not a tech person, but I'm sure that the technology to create better products or services in these two things that I'm talking about are already existing. I am pretty sure about that. So the first thing is devices that need to be charged. Almost all of us need to charge our mobile phone, our power bank, maybe a Wi-Fi router, and a Kindle hardware. Now, when you charge them, I personally find the visible indicator and the auditory indicator. There is no auditory indicator, so that's a problem. So I find a big problem with these two indicators. There are no other indicators. So what do I mean by visual indicators? If I put my phone to be charged, I do not get one of the fundamental things in design thinking is feedback. When you do something, when something occurs, there has to be a feedback. You have to know that something's happened. So when I put my phone to be charged, first of all, it's very difficult to know whether it's being charged or not. There is a small light and it's so small that I can barely see it. How do I know that my phone has become 100% charged? If I'm even a few feet away from my phone, even if I'm 2 or 3 feet away from my phone, I can't make out. I have to literally see the screen on the phone and look at that small font, which tells me that the phone is now 100% charged. And for the life of me, I can't understand why Samsungs and Apples of the world can't see that just making this small change can probably lead to exploding sales. Why can't they make a mobile handset which from a distance, at my choice, I should be able to opt for that choice, just like you opt for a silent mode or an airplane mode or a vibration mode on your phone. Why can't I opt for an option which shows me from a distance, maybe a distance of 10 feet or 20 feet, that the phone is fully charged? Let's say 4 lights. When the phone is being charged, it's only 25% charged. Maybe one light is on and one light is blinking. So I know it's over 25% charged, but less than 50% charged. When it's 100% charged, why can't I see that the phone is 100% charged? Why can't I just see 4 lights which are fully on and not blinking? Then I know the phone is fully charged and I can take the charger off. This appears to be something absurdly simple. This appears to be something that should be obvious, but somehow it's just not happening. Maybe another thing that they could do, which I would certainly be willing to pay more money for, is an auditory feedback. After the phone gets fully charged, maybe a voice comes out of the phone saying, "This phone is fully charged now." And as long as the charger is being connected and you're overcharging the phone, maybe this voice comes every 1 minute. I would definitely be willing to pay more than what I've paid for my phone if I have that facility. I think that's going to put me at ease when I charge the phone. I just put the phone for charging and I can then focus on my other work. I don't need to keep on thinking whether my phone's been fully charged because I know at the right time I will get an alert. So for the life of me, I don't know why phone companies haven't done it. Uh, so some of you should give feedbacks to the mobile phone companies. I definitely keep giving feedbacks to them. I hope they do it and I hope they acknowledge me. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing, which is again very, very baffling to me, is in spite of all the technological progress that we've made in this world, why have we not managed to eliminate something as irritating and as omnipresent as a queue in this world today, when even low income group people have mobile phones and smartphones? Why do we have the concept of a queue? I find a queue extremely distasteful. I find it so distasteful. I'm sure plenty of other men, ladies and men both find it very distasteful. You stand in a queue, and plenty of people have not been given training, and maybe we ought to start that training about how to behave in public. So plenty of people are standing behind you actually come and press their bodies against you, and you start feeling the heat of body heat of strangers. Now, I'm sure everybody hates to feel the body heat of strangers. It's just an absolute disgusting feeling. But then it happens. And it's absolutely, absolutely horrible to feel somebody's body behind you, a strange body, trying to share their body heat with you. It's absolutely horrible to have somebody's handbag or luggage hit against your body. It's just a disgusting experience. And why should it happen? Everybody has phones now. If you're in a queue where your order of standing in the queue is important, why don't people just give you an indication on the mobile phone? Why can't they just have a token system, which is a very, very old system? So I find these two things and plenty of other things totally, totally baffling. It doesn't even require any great rocket science. It doesn't require a PhD in design thinking. I hope people get around to solving these two problems. So now you know why I am very excited about design thinking. It's a very, very challenging world out there for me. So let's talk a little about mind maps now. You can certainly use mind maps for design thinking, but let me just give a brief introduction to mind maps. A mind map is a thinking tool, and we all need thinking tools. I'm going to talk about that in slightly greater detail. So it's a thinking tool, just like you have other thinking tools like flowcharts or even linear notes are a thinking tool. And the more thinking tools we have, the better. One of the major reasons why plenty of people should use as many thinking tools as possible is because most people in the world are not as smart as they think they are. And this is not my view. This is the view of two very eminent psychologists called Dunning and Kruger. That's why it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a very exciting story. Dunning and Kruger read a newspaper article which spoke about a person who had robbed a bank, or a few banks, in fact. He got arrested. And they were very surprised. This man who robbed a few banks got arrested because he was robbing banks without using a mask. He knew those banks had security cameras. In fact, he smiled at a security camera before entering a certain bank. That was the level of his arrogance or confidence. So they interviewed him and they said, "You appear to be an educated man. What happened? Why did you rob this bank when it was obvious that you would be caught?" The name of that man was MacArthur Wheeler. He said, "I did cover my face." They said, "Really, we have pictures, and the whole reason why you're in jail right now is because people were able to identify your face, and that's how you got arrested. That's how you are in prison right now." He said, "I covered my face with lime juice." And these guys were absolutely shocked. So, "What do you mean you covered your face with lime juice? What's the connection between that and what we're asking you?" He said, "I covered my face with lime juice, thinking that that would make my face invisible." Now, this was getting even more baffling. So he clarified that there was this product in the market called invisible ink. Imagine you sign a document, and after some time, your signature just disappears from that document. Okay, so that's invisible ink. And invisible ink had a component called lime juice in it, which helped the ink become invisible. So he thought that if he just applies lime juice to his face, he would become invisible. These guys were absolutely baffled. They said, "Is this man an exception? I mean, this guy is educated and he's giving us such weird answers. Or are human beings generally not very smart to begin with?" So did a lot of research, and they came to the conclusion that most human beings are not as smart as they think they are, and not as smart as their friends and peers think they are. In the interest of time, I'm just going to give you 3 quick examples. I'm sure plenty of us would be able to relate to it. One is Steve Jobs. One major mistake that Steve Jobs made when he was at Apple was being fired from his own company. That's fired from company. How Steve Jobs as a genius. He was a genius in some aspect, but wasn't a genius at his own in Apple. So the fact that I found out 3 days ago was at the time of his death, 80% of his shares were identified that this company is going to do very well in terms of stock price and would know good enough to buy that stock. Now, apparently, that's not true, as plenty of stock stories, colorful stories about promoters and stockbrokers and stock analysts and fund managers not doing as well as most people think they do. So let me just give you 2 more examples. Steve Jobs was a businessman, a very famous businessman. Let me give you an example of another famous man, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. Now, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan is not a businessman or not a conventional businessman, but he is an incredibly smart man, incredibly talented man, and a legend. But he made a huge mistake by starting a company called ABCL, Amitabh Bachchan Corporation Limited, which led to his bankruptcy, and he almost had to auction his house to pay back his debts. Now, no matter what you thought about him, no matter you may not think of him as a businessman, plenty of fans, plenty of observers would be absolutely shocked to know that he could make such a fatal mistake, a near fatal mistake. It wasn't a fatal mistake because he managed to bounce back with Kaun Banega Crorepati. But the point is, plenty of people who get bankrupt in this world do not bounce back. They never get rich again. they never recover. So it was a near fatal mistake. Again, a great example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And let me give you the last example. We've spoken about Steve Jobs, who was a businessman, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, who's a legendary actor, and the third is a legendary scientist, Isaac Newton. And one would absolutely not expect Isaac Newton to make any fatal mistake because he's supposed to be brilliant, right? Brilliant people don't make fatal mistakes. That's why we think of them as brilliant. If they make fatal mistakes, maybe they're not so brilliant after all. Isaac Newton, like any other investor, got carried away by an investment in a company called the South Sea Company because the stock price kept hitting the roof. It started doing very well. And when a stock price does very well, the smart money gets out. When a stock is at a very high price, the best thing to do in most cases is to get out because it's already got very high. But that's the time when the dumb money, when the people who don't know much about the stock market, when the people who don't know much about financial literacy, those guys enter when it's at the peak. And Isaac Newton was no different. He invested in the South Sea bubble when it was at a very high price. And he lost a huge amount of money. He lost his entire retirement corpus. Now, you never expect somebody like Isaac Newton to make this mistake. If Isaac Newton had understood the Dunning-Kruger effect, if he would have taken his time before making this investment, if he would have thought rationally, if he would have used thinking tools like mind maps or any other thinking tools, just because I'm a mind map trader, I'm not going to suggest that you use mind maps and you don't use other mental tools. Please use as many mental tools as you want. If you find a tool that suits you, which is not a mind map, please go ahead. I'm trying to encourage people to get themselves to be brain literate. You understand how your brain works. And one of the things, one of the messages I'm driving home today is one of the key lessons is that your brain is not very good. Your brain has severe limitations. And I think that message is very difficult to propagate in this world because of one of the greatest diseases in the modern world. And that disease is a motivational trainer. Motivational trainers have managed to convince plenty of people that all they need to do is motivate themselves and all the problems will be solved and success will be at their feet. So they keep on talking to you about how great you are, about how unlimited your faculties are. All you have to do is send out messages to the universe that you want 100 crore rupees and suddenly you'll get an SMS on your phone which will say, dear customer, we wish to advise you that in your bank account XXX123, we have just credited an amount of 100 crores. Well, it's never happened with me and I don't think it's happened with anybody in the world. Now, success takes brain literacy. Success takes luck too, but luck is not a strategy. So I suggest you focus on brain literacy. So those are the three examples, and these are three critical stories that I'm suggesting you take very seriously to start, or if you're already on the journey of brain literacy, then to take this journey very, very seriously and use as many mental tools as possible. Now, let's talk about a little more into the workings of your brain. We're going to have a session now where you yourself will discover how your brain works, right? I could just keep on talking the whole day and I could say, this is the way your brain works. But when I give you an opportunity to see how your brain works by yourself, then that message will stay with you for a longer time. It will have a deeper impact. It will make you understand it better and memorize it better. Before that, I think we can throw the floor open for one question at this stage. We'll see if we can take more questions later on, depending on how much time we have. Can we just take one question right now? If Professor Kumar thinks that's a good idea.
Yeah, no problem, sir. Please continue. I mean, let's have one question right now.
Yeah, you can see if there's a question that you want to take from chats.
So can I ask one question?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Faisal, get up. Right?
Yes.
And slightly louder, please.
Yeah. The examples you gave,
Yes.
are they more related to bad decisions, or they could be like, even with the best of decisions and analysis,
Yes.
there is always a level of uncertainty in any decision. So can we
Yes.
say that we can remove uncertainty from any decision, make it zero?
No, you can't. So what is the definition of a good decision? That itself is something where you will be shocked. Plenty of Fortune 500 chief executives will not answer this question properly.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to ask.
Yeah.
That if Amitabh Bachchan made a decision, it may have
Yeah.
been a good decision at that time, or Isaac Newton, or whatever. Because if you see even if you see the two Ambani brothers, and if you see
Okay.
even Reliance of Mukesh Ambani was not doing well for almost 10, 15 years.
Okay.
And today, suddenly, because of his geo business, his RIL share is shooting up the roof.
Yeah.
But it may not be even, tomorrow again things may change. It's all very, very, highly uncertain.
Sure. Okay. So
That's the,
if I were to ask all the Fortune 500 chief executives
yes,
to give me an answer in less than 20 words
yes.
to the question, what is the definition of a good decision?
Yeah.
What do you think most of them will say?
Well, most of them don't think beyond their next paycheck. So they will say, if you get your next paycheck, it's a good decision. If you don't get it, has been bad decision.
Yeah, but that's a answer related to their personal lives. It comes
No,
from a
it
general
is.
definition.
See, most Fortune 500 company today would be hoping they can get the next paycheck because of the kind of situation which is there globally. And,
Yeah, but
in fact,
that's not the answer to the question. What's a good decision?
See, I think I think my understanding would be most CEOs, if they are not owners or they don't have stock ownership, they
Yeah.
are just looking to show the returns, show the short-term performance, immediate performance, most of them. And anything which improves their ROI or profitability or economic value added would be a good decision.
So I think you hit it. What you said at the end is what most of them would say.
Yeah.
A good decision is a decision which provides a gain, which is a successful decision. In terms of, let's say, if you're trying to make money and you make money through a decision, then the decision is a correct decision. Do you agree? A decision that gives you a profit is the right decision. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I agree. But today, if you see, world is moving to multiple stakeholder approach. They are saying a decision which is good for the community, which is good for society, which has social responsibility. So most Fortune 500 companies are actually also looking at the triple bottom line. Like Pepsi and Coke, they are saying we will become zero water deficit. And they have become, I think, to quite an extent. Or we will only have healthy, health and wellness has been the platform of Pepsi now for almost a decade.
So see, those are specifics, but you answered the question correctly when you said if a decision comes out to be profitable,
yes, correct.
then
Economic
it's
value
considered
added.
to be the right decision, which is the problem with business thinking and with any type of thinking. So based on this principle, executives are rewarded based on results, which is a totally wrong thing to do. Amazon does not reward people based on results. Hindustan Unilever, and you can see an interview of mine with the executive director of Hindustan Unilever, Mr. Sudhir Sitapati. Hindustan Unilever, the incentive structure gives a very small reward based on results, but the highest reward, the highest bonus, the majority of the bonus is dependent on them, is given to people who follow the right and this is one of the most important words in the world, process. They are told you've got to follow this process. People who are able to follow that process better than the others or above a certain benchmark, they get rewarded the most, not the people who produce the best results. Why? Because the person who produces the best result, if he has done it by using a wrong process, sooner or later, that decision is going to show losses somewhere else. And that's the whole reason why I'm suggesting use tools. A tool is very similar to a process, is very similar to a strategy. And so all these I would put under the same umbrella. So going back to your question, if the decision was made on some solid grounds, if it was a scientific decision, and I've done separate seminars on decision making itself, then it was a good decision. And if the decision was not made on a scientific principle, even if it produced good results, was not a right decision. So if the rationale behind the decision is correct, it's a good decision. If the rationale behind the decision is wrong, it's a bad decision, irrespective of the results. Because if the rationale behind the decision is wrong and you still got a profit, then it's a fluke. So does that answer your question? Mr. Gera?
Yeah, sorry, it was muted actually. Yeah, actually what you are saying is process should be followed, and the process, what I was just trying to say is even the best of process may still not produce the exact best results, as we have seen in some of the best companies in the world, which get eliminated overnight.
Right. Absolutely right. You're using you are doing something which maximizes the probability of success.
No, that's okay, but within a certain,
that's the only thing you can do.
You see, again, I think there is a.
Can you do better than that?
Sir,
If you can do better than that, then you will displace Jeff Bezos as the richest man in the world.
So shall
Okay, if you can do better than that, then send a message to everybody in the group, and we'll all become richer with you. Okay.
No, I'm not Jeff Bezos, so please, you can't say that. I would have been,
because it's time to
no. What I'm saying is, Jeff Bezos is not working on this thing. Is working on a basic philosophy of a best customer experience. So he does everything which produces the best customer experience
through process.
And
process.
Yeah, through process. Agreed. But
read the book on Amazon by the biggest.
No, but I read the book. I have read the book, sir.
Ram Charan is the guy who's trained me too. He's the best consultant in the world, according to Fortune magazine.
No, absolutely. He has processes, but if you see, he is very, very disruptive also. He has disrupted his processes many times.
There's no conflict there. There's no conflict with these two statements.
He's the one who believes in disrupting himself, actually. If you see his philosophy, he says, I should keep disrupting myself. And he's again disrupting himself, if you see. He's moving more into the... Pardon?
There's a process for disruption. He doesn't randomly disrupt.
No, he agrees. But he is always looking at the next technology which will substitute his current competitive advantage.
No, so we are straight. We have a very narrow point that the process is more important rather than the result. Okay, any more discussion? Just go to Google and search for Dharmendra Rai, and we'll be able to carry on this conversation offline. Okay, so I'll have to carry on. Can we?
Okay, right, sir.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes. We'll take more questions slightly later on. Can we just, with Professor Kumar's permission, I would like to just move on. We'll do something which involves a lot of interaction. It's very exciting for maybe next 10-15 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A, and then we'll have a video on mind mapping. Okay, so Professor Kumar, may I start?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to do some quick exercises through which you are going to explore yourself. You will find out yourself how your brain works, instead of me just telling you and making it very boring and one-sided. I'm going to give you a particular word. You're going to think of whatever you think of. You don't have to do anything particular. You just have to be a witness of what's going on in your brain. Okay? Just observe. Just see. Don't try to do anything deliberately. Just be passive. Okay? The word is apple. Something happened. A reflex, an instinctive action just took place in your brain right now when I use the word apple, when I mentioned the word apple. So can we just take a couple of answers? Ma'am, if you could just read out just 2 answers that have come up in chat.
It's sweet,
Okay.
red, fruit, health.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Doctor.
fine. Can we just take 2 or 3 more?
Doctor, Newton,
Okay.
Apple as company,
Okay, let's take last 2.
iPhone,
Okay.
Adam and Eve,
Now,
computer.
right. So
And the last one is Steve Jobs.
okay.
Yeah.
Now you can, this may be a small group and maybe we'll get some answers here. And you might be thinking, do we get the same answers when we do it with other people as well? So you can do this. You can probably do it every time you're in the company of, let's say, at least 20 people. You can ask them this question. You will get the same result. Most of them, they will have come up with an image. Virtually nobody will come up with a printout or a piece of paper which has APPLE written on that paper. Virtually nobody will do that. Yeah. Sorry, I'm also, whatever thoughts are coming into my mind, I'm jotting them down so that I don't get interrupted and I can then give you my 100%. Now, that is very, very fundamental. And it's shocking again that plenty of people have not realized the importance of this. We tend to think in terms of visuals by default. It's just the way it is. It's a reflex action. It's an instinct. It's an automatic thing. It's a subconscious thing. That's just the way the brain works, period. You can't change it, at least not for a million years. Okay, so why do we love images so much? Why are we so addicted to images? It's because we have been on the planet as a species with a certain brain, with a brain with a certain level of development for millions of years. And most of those years, we were cavemen who did not have any formal language. Language, according to some historians, is only 100,000 years old. This is 1 lakh years old, whereas we have been on the planet for millions of years, our species. So you see, language is still something new to the human brain. Whereas images were on the looking at images and memorizing images was very critical to survival. And imagine you're a caveman, you get up in the morning from your cave, you need to go to a water source. You need to hunt food or pluck food from a certain place. You have to know the way from your cave to that food source. If you don't know the way, if you've forgotten the way, the chances are very high that you would die within a few days or a few hours. It is very important to know which animals are predators and which are not. It's very important to know which people around us are friends and who are strangers. Because a strange person in a caveman scenario could be an enemy and he could kill us. If we see somebody eating a fruit and he dies after that, then we had to make the assumption that that fruit is probably poisonous. Remember what that fruit looks like and store it in a long-term memory. So images were absolutely critical to our survival. And that's why that's the first thing that came to mind, just images. So that's a brain tendency number one. Let's move on to brain tendency number two. So you can just answer either in just one or two words. These images that you saw, were they black and white or were they color? Can we just take, let's say, the first four answers?
Colored.
All the first four answers are coming. I mean, first three are colored. The fourth one is black and white.
Okay. So again, you can do this exercise again with lots of people. Most people will tell you that they saw a colorful picture because we have lived in nature and nature is colorful. We have now accustomed ourselves to dull environments and dull looking buildings and dull looking walls. But we've spent wonderful years in nature and nature has fantastic colors. So we are used to colors. We need colors. We love colors. Without colors, people can literally become depressed. In fact, psychologists, clinical psychologists who work with depressed people have told them to draw things, and plenty of people who are depressed draw in and paint in black and white. And when their depressions have lifted, they have moved to drawing in color. So color motivates you, it affects your mood, it affects your cognition. You have millions and billions of brain cells in your brain purely devoted to processing color. And you're not using them when you're looking at something which is black and white. So you're literally not using a huge part of your brain when you are not looking at color. It's that simple. So that's a tendency of the brain. Number two is we absolutely love color. Color is not something nice and cute. It's not a luxury. It's very, very critical to cognition, to long-term memory, to interest, to motivation in learning. Okay, let's move on to the third learning about the brain. Is some of you would have seen an apple. Some of you would have seen Steve Jobs. Some of you would have seen a laptop. Some of you would have seen a mobile phone. In addition to that, did you also see something else which was linked to this? So if you saw an apple, maybe you also saw another apple which was cut into pieces. You could have seen apples of a different color. You could have seen an iPhone first, and then maybe you saw an iPod or maybe a MacBook. So can we just take, let's say, the first three answers? Yeah, so everybody saw something else in addition to the first piece of information that they had in their minds. And that is absolutely critical to creativity, right? You think of something, then you think of something else, then you think of something else, then you think of something else. all related to the thing you thought of before. And that is something that's exploited. That's a natural thinking tendency of the brain that's exploited in the mind map, which we get into details in a full day session, where everybody gets to make mind maps which enhance their creativity, which we can't do now because we don't have time. For people who want to directly jump to that after the session, you can look at a book called How to Mind Map by Tony Bizan. It's a thin book, and that focuses on how you can use mind maps for creativity. And I have written a book on mind maps, and I'll be giving you the links where you can read that book for free. But I haven't written a book on mind maps for creativity yet. So that's one of the upcoming books. Suffice to say that the brain cannot keep something in itself isolated. If you think of something, you have to think of something else. And when you think of that something else, you have to think of something else, unless you break this chain of thought by getting distracted or something else. That's just the way the brain learns. That's just the way the brain thinks by default. And that is a tendency of the brain which has to be captured, because why would you do something difficult when you can capture a natural tendency of your brain to be creative? It doesn't make any sense. Right, so image, color, association. And now for something nice and fun, a memory test. Okay, I know you don't think of it as nice and fun, but I have something which will turn out to be nice and fun and instructive. So please do not use any recording devices. Please don't use pen and paper, and please don't use a mobile phone. You just have to listen to the 9 words I'm giving you. The objective of listening to these 9 words is so that after I give you those words, you are able to reproduce them from your memory. Okay, so your 9 words start now. 1, Katrina. 2, eyes. 3, screen. 4, Karina. 5, biceps. 6, apps, like mobile apps, APPS. 7, Kangana. 8, stomach. 9, charger. That's it. Okay, the good news is there is no memory test. Okay. The purpose is of this exercise right at the beginning was to find out how does your brain think naturally, not how your learned brain thinks. Right? That's why all the questions that I've asked you, you can ask them to a child also, you'll get the same answers. Though the child may not have gone to school, though the child may not have learned these processes in any school. So if we can take the first 3 answers now to this question. When you were listening to these 9 words, you were using some process to try to memorize these 9 words. If you have read books on memory, if you know mnemonic techniques, like the link system or the PEG system or the memory palace system, then please do not answer this question, because those are learned strategies. There's nothing wrong with learned strategies. Those are the best strategies in the world. The top memory champions in the world use those strategies. At the same time, they're artificial. Artificial doesn't always mean bad, and natural doesn't always mean good. The purpose of this exercise is just to see people who've not been exposed to memory strategies, what process do they use to try to memorize these 9 words? Okay, so if you've used any strategies, please do you use any strategies that you've learned, mnemonics, please do not respond. If you've not gone to any memory seminar, if you've not read the book on memory strategies, then please answer the question. So can we take the first 3 questions, first 3 responses?
The first one is linking name with pictures. Second is writing. The third is I linked one word to the previous one.
Okay.
Linking these words to each other, listening carefully and recalling, and
Okay.
finding association between the words.
Okay, so it's very close to the correct answer. Can we just
The
say
one is, okay, I imagine these to remember, linking the words to a certain subject, and linking words in the form of a funny story, managed to
that's
remember the
linking
visual
method.
image. Yeah,
That's a linking method which is taught in
exactly.
in
And I could not visualize the picture of the chargers, therefore I forgot that word.
okay.
So
Fine.
imagining the images actually.
See, we've already proved that images pop up, so that's not a new learning in this exercise. There were some answers which were answers by people who have attended memory sessions, and they use a story system or the link system or the chain system. It's good. It's good that they've attended these memory sessions and learned scientifically validated memory strategies. But some answers were answers which were natural. And that was you're, in a way, linking words which are similar. The exact word that I was looking for, which I didn't get that word, but I got the process, is grouping or chunking. So plenty of people would have said, okay, these are the names of celebrities, or these are names of ladies, or these are proper nouns. These are names of things related to, these are words related to a mobile phone. These are body parts. So they're forming chunks. Now, why do people do that? It's because the human brain, again, going back to the core concept, is a very limited organ. According to George Miller, who propounded this theory in 1956, he propounded something called the rule of 7, 7 plus or minus 2. He said the human brain can hold 7 bits of information in the working memory. Working memory is the memory that is the information that you're juggling with at a particular time. The technical definition of working memory is conscious processing of information. The information that you're consciously processing at one time. That's called the working memory. So you can't go beyond 7 bits of information. Most people cannot go beyond 7 bits of information. They can't juggle more than 7 bits of information. Plus or minus 2. So some people can juggle 9, some people can juggle 5. This was in 1956. The new number, according to some neuroscientists, is not 7. The magic number is not 7. The magic number is 4. And I think the magic number is 1. I think people are so distracted today. They've ruined their brains with the mobile, and the decline is never ending. That most people can't even think of more than one thing at one time. They are terribly, terribly mentally handicapped. So what's the point? The point is, the minute the brain sees a large number of data, it tries to make life simple for itself by chunking, so that now you have to remember only the chunks. You got to remember only 3 chunks. And when you think of those chunks, then you have to remember the 3 things within each chunk. That's a much simpler way to process information, to memorize, to present, than just having a flurry of information out there. So that's the 4th natural tendency of the brain. And the fifth one. Again, this is interactive, so it's fun. If you had to point, if you had to physically point towards your future, as if your future is something tangible, like a building or a shop or a tree, if your future was something tangible that you could look at and point at, in which direction would you point? Can we take the first three answers? Okay, one is ahead. Above, up. Okay, so for most people, the answer is normally in front. Probably about 90% will say it's in front. 10% of the people will say it's on the left. And when it's past, 90% roughly will say it's in the back. And sorry, 90% will say it's in the back. And 10% will say the past is on the left and the future is on the right. So they're seeing a graph move from left to right, or a line move from left to right. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is that we have preferences for putting data in geographical places. We like to put, some people may want to put the past, if they're making a project, if they're doing a PhD, if they're studying a subject, they want to put the past data here and they want to put the future data here because they feel more comfortable with that information. It helps them for better learning and better recall. Where somebody else may want to put the past here on the page, or the future here on a page, and he may want to put the past here. That helps him to relate better to that information. So ultimately, there are fundamentals of learning, and then you got to tweak those fundamentals to suit your unique learning style. So that concludes the exploration of your thinking. The conclusions are that you think in terms of images, color, associations, groups, and you think geographically, or I just like to call it loci, L-O-C-I, because it's a nice, cute, short word. Now, the point is, if our brain naturally likes to think in this direction, it likes to think in terms of images and colors and so on, why are we not using tools which respect the brain's natural tendencies? A mind map has images, it has colors, it has associations, it has groupings, and it has locations. You can locate the information wherever you want. So that's why a mind map is such a brilliant thinking tool for just about any type of thinking, certainly creative thinking, and design thinking is a subset of creative thinking. So I had sent a link to Professor Kumar of a video. It's a 5-minute video. If we could play it along with subtitles, just to be on the safe side, if some people don't have a great audio.
Okay, sir. Okay, I'm playing it.
It's a 5-minute video which will visually show you what a mind map is by Mr. Tony Buzan, who is the inventor of mind maps and who's my teacher. Yeah, if you could put a full screen and the subtitles on.
It's audible.
It's not audible, so we might as well put the subtitles. So even if
not audible, sir, not audible. Could you please share the links?
So it's not audible.
Okay.
So even if it's not audible, we'll just play it. We can have the subtitles, and later on, I'll send a link to everyone.
Yeah. Definitely. Just give me 1 minute, please.
I think it'll be good if we play it right now. Let everybody see what a mind map visually looks like. then we can have a little Q&A and then a conclusion.
Okay.
Do you need to come up with brilliant
Yes, now it's ready. I'm playing it.
ideas or find inspired solutions to any problem? Tony Buzan is the world's leading author and top lecturer on the brain and learning. He has changed the lives of over 250 million people in the revolutionary system of mind mapping. So, what is a mind map?
A mind map is a thinking tool that reflects externally what goes on inside your head. The mind map was like a Swiss army knife for the brain. Anything I wanted to do in terms of thinking, contemplation, cognition, remembering, creating, the mind map was the ideal tool for that.
Mind mapping is straightforward and fun. We start in the center of a blank page. We connect branches to the central image and connect second and third level branches to the first and second, and so on.
The brain is radiant. It thinks centrally and explodes out in all directions.
Branches are curved and tapered rather than straight lines. They are organic and free-flowing, as opposed to structured and uniformed.
The branches on a mind map are the reflection of the way the brain thinks. So when you think of anything, if you think of chair, you have your picture and then you have your associations of that. The brain thinks by imagination and association. The reason why traditional note-taking in lists and lines doesn't work, actually is counterproductive, is because it doesn't have the associations. If you don't have associations, you don't have connection. If you don't have connection, you don't have memory and you don't have thinking. In a mind map, the branches are always curved, curvilinear. Reason why? Nature is curvilinear. And if all the branches are straight, it is literally rigid, similar, and therefore boring. The brain will very quickly get unhappy with a whole bunch of rigid, straight lines. It gets absorbed and intrigued by the beauty of curvilinear.
We add one word to each branch.
One of the important points in structure in a mind map is to have one word per branch. Why? Because if you have one word, that one word with all its associations is free. If you put them together, you're making it more rigid. And very simply, for example, if you were mind mapping and you wanted to put Tony Buzan, if you put Tony Buzan, you've stuck them together with glue. But if you put Buzan and then Tony, you got the freedom to radiate out my father, my mother, my brother, the history of the name, etc. So the single word per line gives you much more freedom, much more creativity, much more clarity. Ideally, the length of the word should be the length of the branch, for the very simple reason that if this word here is then placed next to this word here, and the branch and the word are the same line, then the meeting point is very close. So the two words are in space close, i.e. you've got one word in a long branch and one word here in a long branch. The words are disconnected. We don't use color in notes traditionally because we are told not to in school. All the research says exactly the opposite should be said. We love color, and studies at London University show that people who use color and image in their imagination when they are learning and trying to remember, inevitably do better than those who don't.
We use images throughout.
throughout a mind map, there should be keywords and key images. And if an image is easy for you to do, instead of people, you can quickly just draw 3 little stick figures. The image is a picture. The picture is worth 1,000 words. Another important point about the use of images, the use of associations, is that all the great geniuses did that. So if you start to use associations, you start to use images externally, you will join the pantheon of the great geniuses, like Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo did it. Darwin did it. Beethoven did it. Every genius used image and associations, and the mind map is the process by which you can do that. It's a genius tool.
Okay, that's it. Okay, great. Now, I think for the next 10 minutes, we can take some questions because we are very close to the finishing time. And before that, I just want to say 3 things. I request Gupta ma'am and Kumar sir to send me the email IDs and mobile numbers of all the people who are attending so that I can send them lots of stuff, lots of such videos, lots of ebooks for free and lots of other material on mind mapping and design thinking. But for people who immediately after this want to access something, if they have something to query after the session, just Google Dharmendra Rai. That's it, just these 2 words, Dharmendra Rai, and you will see my website. On the website, you can send me queries through the message option. So you don't have to remember anything. You don't have to remember my email address or anything. That's number 1. Number 2 is if you directly want to access my books, just go to Google and search for Dharmendra Rai Amazon. I've written 2 books, one on mind mapping and one on invisible selling. You can read both for free on Kindle Unlimited. So I thought I'll just share this information. And now let's see how much time we can get. Let's do questions for the next 10 to 15 minutes and then conclude. If that's okay with Gupta ma'am and Kumar sir.
Of course, I'll request all the participants to please post your questions in the chat box because that will be much better way. Instead of we all start speaking on audios. Kindly put your questions on that.
Design thinking, learning, memory, creativity.
So the first question which has come from Manu is that as a teacher, how can I use the mind mapping practically?
You can use it in almost every aspect of your work, right from preparing a delivery of a particular subject or a particular chapter or a particular concept. You can use mind maps, first of all, to understand that concept, then to deliver it, and then introduce your students to mind mapping so that they're able to absorb that concept through mind maps. So these are like 3 ways in which you can use mind maps immediately. In addition to this, you can also use it for creativity in case you want to generate ideas, in case you want to think of some innovative way of teaching, in case you want to think of the various ideas that you want to add on your existing syllabus. The list is endless.
So how successful has mind mapping been adopted? That's by Rajat Kero.
How successful has it been in?
How successful has mind mapping been adopted?
Adopted, okay.
Yeah.
So the funny part about people is that the people who are the smartest, they are the hungriest. And the people who are dumb, they have no hunger. they think they know everything. They think, oh, this is all nonsense.
Yeah.
ये तो किताबी कीड़ा है. ये तो this guy is a pandit and all that. It's shocking that analogy I can think of is the person in the world who wants to run faster than he can currently run. The one man in the world who wants to run faster than any other man is, guess who?
Our mind, sir.
No, so out of all the people on the
fastest man.
Yeah, and who's that? In 100 meters, who's that?
Bhag Milka Bhag.
Usain Bolt.
Milkha Singh is history.
Usain Bolt.
Usain Bolt, even if he can increase his running speed by 0.0001 millisecond, that's hungry for that. Similarly, the people who are already very smart, the people who are already chief executives of Fortune 100 companies, the people who are already number one in their class, the people who are already acknowledged as being the best teachers in the world, they want to get better because that's just the way it works. That's their passion, and they want to continue being number one in their field. So now, what is the connection between that and your question? The thing is, the adoption is highest by people who need it the least. Right? Jeff Bezos does not need to make another $1 billion, but he is the hungriest to make that next $1 billion. So the smartest people in the world, they are always on lookout for ways to becoming smarter and using tools like mind maps. And who is the biggest name in mind map, in design thinking in the world? I'm not doing quizzes to show you how smart I am. Research has proved that quizzing is one of the best ways to learn. If you're just going to give somebody information, it's going to slip off. But when you quiz him and he's using his mind, he's going to retain the information for a longer period. So the biggest name in the world in design thinking, who is he? It's a he, so you already got a hint. Any answers? IKEA. No, I'm not talking about a company. IKEA is a very good example, but I'm not talking about a company. I'm talking about a person. De Bono's lateral thinking. Okay, one more clue. He runs a company or founded a company called IDEO, IDEO. He's known as the inventor of design thinking.
Yes. There's the answer, De Bono and Tony Buzan. Tim Brown.
De Bono and Tony Buzan, probably, but this man is acknowledged as the...
Tim Brown.
Tim Brown is very close. The guy who probably Tim Brown learned from. Bald guy, specs, big mustache. Okay, his name is David Kelly. David Kelly founded IDEO. IDEO is known as the cradle of design thinking. David Kelly is the guy who helped Steve Jobs design most of his products. Steve Jobs went to Palo Alto Research Center. He saw a mouse, a very crude mouse, and he said, "This is the future. People will use a mouse. It's the most intuitive thing, right? Because when we want to do things, we want to move something from here to here, we use our hands. So similarly, using a mouse it imitates the way our body naturally moves, and hence it's going to be a big hit." So it took that mouse, that crude mouse which was made by Palo Alto Research Center, which belonged to Xerox. He took it to David Kelly. He said, "Look, this is a mouse. I want you to do this. I want you to make it user-friendly, and it has to cost less than $10. And he's out. That's the way he used to allot his work. If people would say it's impossible, he would just fire it. So David Kelly got to work on it, and David Kelly designed the mouse and plenty of other Apple products and plenty of other products in the world. And in an interview that I'm going to put on my blog, I'm going to collect a list of all the interviews by all these great people who have said that they've used mind maps. In an interview, David Kelly says he uses mind maps every day. Every day. So the smartest guys in the world, they realize the importance of mind maps, and the other guys, they are skeptical, generally tend to be skeptical of everything. They tend to think of everything as just a money-making thing or something that's just fancy. This mind map looks fancy, it looks colorful, but research after research after research has shown that it's very powerful, and the smartest people in the world use it. So just to end off the answer, Bill Gates himself is a user of mind maps, and you can find that on Google. He's a fan of mind maps. He's recommended mind maps. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. So another question I would like to take up is how to encourage, competence changes with age and experience, and how to apply brain mapping, and how we can encourage creativity and mind mapping in science teaching.
With fear. Fear works very well. There are two forces of human nature. One is pleasure and the other is pain. Pleasure is telling people, oh, if you do this, you will be able to have a higher salary. You will be able to have more fame. You will be able to have a bigger house. That's using the pleasure principle. The pain principle is telling them, if you don't use this, you're going to lose. If you don't do this, you're going to be fired from your job. I have been telling that there is a TEDx talk of mine, on the first TEDx talk on creativity and mind mapping, where I'm using the scare tactic. I'm telling them you will become obsolete. You lose your company. Just like Kodak became bankrupt because they didn't see digital photography coming. Nokia became bankrupt or irrelevant, if not bankrupt, because they couldn't see that Android would overtake Symbian as a software and smartphones would be such a big thing. Plenty of people, millions of people have lost their jobs because they're irrelevant. And the best, COVID is a very, very tragic thing. But the best thing that's happened is nobody's going to take the jobs for granted anymore. If you are creative, if you are constantly learning about strategies of the brain that make you better in learning memory and creativity, and something like COVID happens. COVID is just one thing. So many COVID type situations have happened. Plenty of people have not even realized. Plenty of robots have replaced so many jobs. That's happening inside the factory walls. So people are not seeing it. But every year, some kind of COVID is going to happen. If not a biological disruption, then a technological disruption. So fear is the key. Tell people it doesn't matter how much success you've had in the past. If you are not known as a person who is creative, who constantly keeps coming up with new ideas, who is a step above others in learning memory, creativity, then when a bad time comes, and bad times are going to continue coming, your head will roll if somebody else is better than you. So fear works very well. So does that answer your question?
I'm sure they are satisfied with what you have answered. There's another point which has been raised by one of the participants, that the example of the failure which you have given are quoting the end results. Where is the evidence that they didn't follow any process of rational decision making?
We can't, if we ask these people, I'm sure some of them may not, most of them may not tell you about their thinking process because nobody likes to talk about their failures. But they should. Because you learn more from failure than you learn from success. But it seemed to be pretty obvious, right? I mean, what experience does Mr. Amitabh Bachchan have in running a business? One of the biggest misconceptions of the human brain is that success is fungible. Okay. Research. Plenty of people think if I have succeeded in this, I will also succeed in this. Why? Because I'm smart. I've succeeded in that, haven't I? That's one of the most
Ramesh, kindly switch off your mic. Mr. Ramesh, kindly switch off your mic, please.
And there's a fantastic interview in India Today where where Ranbir Kapoor is interviewing Mr. Amitabh Bachchan and asking him, do you ever feel like directing a movie? Plenty of actors have thought, right? I'm an actor. I'm a brilliant actor. Mr. Nasruddin Shah also, he must have thought, I'm one of the best actors in the world. So direction must be very close by, right? Because directing and acting is very close. It's part of the same industry at least. And you know what happened? Mr. Nasruddin Shah made a movie once and he never made a movie again. Anupam Kher made a movie once, he never made another movie again. And those movies flopped very bad. So even these brilliant minds, they thought it's so easy. Yeah, I'm an actor, so it must be very easy for me to become a director, right? So Mr. Amitabh Bachchan obviously learned his lessons from ABCL. And when he was asked this question by Ranbir Kapoor, he said, I'm not a director. It's not the same thing. Acting is not the same as direction. How do you direct a movie? I don't know. How do you decide which camera to use? I don't know. How do you decide for which shot you need for which sequence you need a long shot and for which you need a close-up? I don't know. And that's absolutely the right answer. That is one of the most, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan is one of the most intelligent guys, and that is one of the most sensible answers. So it was pretty obvious, right? He's doing something which is completely out of whack compared to his competence. The chances of failure are very, very high. I don't think there was any great preparation. I don't think there was any great process. So
there is another question. Is there any standard mind map scoring or any rubrics for assessing it?
There are certain mind map laws, and they are there in the book. If you just search for Dharmendra Rai Amazon, you'll find my book, The Thin Mind Map book, which explains all the laws of mind mapping. So you got to master all the laws of mind mapping, which is not very complicated. A mind map, the great thing about a mind map is not that it's some really complicated kind of thing. It's very simple. But the thing I'm trying to get you to do is to realize the importance of mind map as a tool and trying to get you to implement it as often as possible. So the laws of mind mapping are there in the Thin Mind Map book. You can look at it, and you can. I suggest you use mind maps as often as possible, and then maybe you will come out with a better mind map law. Maybe you'll come out with a better thinking tool. So the process for making a mind map is very much out there. Use the process, learn the rules, and then change the rules. Okay, so I think with the amount of time we have now, can we take one final question? Gupta?
We just take one question, last question, that can mind mapping be used for fashion studies, or how can we use that for?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've done sessions for ITM Institute of Fashion Design. They have a separate Pearl, sorry, not ITM. I did for Pearl as well. Pearl Institute focuses on fashion management and fashion studies, and so does ITM. I've done sessions at both these places, and they obviously understand it immediately, right? Because it's visual. So so since it's visual, they understand it even better, and they're able to make more detailed mind maps and more colorful mind maps and do everything they can in a better way. You use color in anything that you do, not just mind maps. You make your atmosphere slightly more colorful, and you enjoy life more. Your attention, your mental health becomes better. So similarly, if you're doing mind maps for anything, and a fashion student will be able to make better mind maps than the average man, he's enhancing his quality of life.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dharmendra. Actually, there are so many things which have popped up, and everybody is getting like triggered by asking so many questions to you. And I'm sure you will be flooded with our questions in your whatever link you will be sharing with us, I mean, on your maybe your website, we all are going to, I mean, full of the questions which we have actually triggered by your talk. I would like formally thank you for being here and giving us such an enlightening session, which has actually given us the light towards which we never thought of looking into, that our brain has a tendency of image, color, association, grouping, and then geographical positioning, which we ever never thought earlier in this prospect actually. So thank you so much for enlightening us with these things. And I'm sure that we all are going to incorporate this in our teaching and learning process. This has been a wonderful session for us, a lots of learning, and we definitely look forward to continue contacting you and troubling you with our questions and queries in future as well. Thank you so much for being here. And over to Dr. Pushpendra. Thanks.
Thank you, Venu. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dharmendra. I remember I was looking for someone who can teach, who can discuss mind mapping. And then I went on, see, I searched on Google. Then I saw your name. Then I saw your profile on LinkedIn. And then I sent some message that, sir, we are organizing this program. So thank you very much. You quickly respond. And thank you very much for joining us today. And I hope when everything would be fine, we would be able to invite you to our own college, Kirori College, Delhi University. And that would be really a great day for all of us, because these things, you know, we have in our mind, but nobody is there to guide us what to do, where to do, and how to approach. So thank you very much. And I believe that beside for teacher, for student also, these mind mapping and these kind of aptitude tests. And I remember I read somewhere that in USA, especially in 11th and 12th class, student has to go through a aptitude test so that they can understand that which field they should go for. So similarly in mind mapping, it's really help us that where we should go for. So thank you very much, Dharmendra, and we'll be in touch.
Sure.
And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.